Ready? And good morning. It's Friday, Saulo. We're tricking the audience, bro. We normally come on Thursday morning, but now we're like Friday, 10 a.m., new podcast, new date, who dis? I very rarely shift from a very kind of consistent schedule, but I did it for the guest that we have today, and I'll bring him on in just a bit. But before we talk about what we want to talk about today, I need to let everybody know who's hit me up. A lot of things changes. Line Mortgage is back at 5590 Summit Parkway. Saulo, how excited are you, bro?
Amazing.
I mean, dude, we've had CBC Familia occupying it on Sundays. We've had Team Marc LaHood utilize it for the campaign. And now we're going to start helping veterans in it again. And we're so excited about it. 5727 Farranon is in the books. We sold that building. We signed for it on Monday, paid about $10.5 million for it, and we got about $10.5 million back for it. So great thing. People were like, hey, I see the for sale signs. Is Line Mortgage okay? It is a business move. It's a business strategy, something that we needed to do to make sure that we bring our culture back, educate veterans, and the whole idea of doing the call center, we're going to postpone. And I don't think we were wrong. I think we were just a little bit early, not knowing that COVID and all those things were going to happen. So that cat is out of the bag. Line Mortgage is back at 5590 Summit Parkway. If you drive to 5727 Farranon, use LOST. Use LOST. You need to go to church, get yourself found, use LOST. All right, so second thing, the Fed's increasing rates, all that fun stuff. Rates will continue to rise. So really bad news for those of y'all who are like, I'm going to wait till the end of the year to buy a house or next year. It's a lot more expensive. Congratulations to the investors, the individuals that have capital, the individuals who are all cash. You can buy a house so much easier now. The days on the market are increasing. Sellers are now giving seller credits. We didn't see a lot of this in 2021, right? Houses were on the market for like 10 minutes and they were sold. That is not the market we're in right now. We're seeing market change things to where sellers are giving concessions. They're reducing price. So if there were ever a time for you to buy a house, is right now. If you can qualify, if you can go and get yourself approved, if you're all cash, get some garbage bags, collect a bunch of bottles off I-35, do what you need to do, get yourself into a home. It's the best time to purchase. It's awesome. Next week, real quick, we're going to have Pastor David Cameron on, Saulo. You got that little clip? We got the pastor from Refuge Church coming on. He's going to come on with Marquise Cox, who's one of the adult pastors at CBC. So a little bit of Refuge Church, a little bit of some CBC. But Saulo, I was really impressed with David Cameron. We went to an event at... what's the name of that theater? Josephine Theater, right? And, they meet at a bar right now. They meet at theaters. I mean, they're just a scrappy little bunch, but they're on fire for the Lord. And their pastor, David Cameron, and this is self-proclaimed, he's the most athletic pastor in San Antonio, Texas. He said that in front of Pastor Ed. Pastor Ed didn't deny it. But he's going to be running 7 marathons in 7 days coming up in the middle of this month to raise awareness, really helping the south side of San Antonio. It's churches like that, man. I love it. They love their people. They love this city. And so I can't wait to have him and Pastor Marquise Cox come on. Pastor Marquise Cox, just for those of y'all who maybe are curious, is running 0 marathons. So we'll just start off with that. Marquise, I hope you're watching. Confirm if I'm lying. If you are running any, please let us know. Otherwise, it's absolutely nothing. You're doing nothing. So next Thursday, it's going to be a really, really great segment. And I think right now in this season, we need to bring in some hope. We need to bring in some pastors, talk about what's happening in this city, talk about, just the vibe of this city. But we got the seminar coming up and we're going to educate our veterans on November 7th. Is today the 10th or the 3rd? The 3rd. So we're today's a 4th. Okay. Yeah. Because I'm so confused. It's a podcast day, but it's a Friday. I normally do them on Thursday. So 2 weeks from now, we're doing this. It's next Thursday, the 10th. That's David Cameron and Marquise Cox. And then, do I have that video of the caller that sent in that video talking about just kind of the pulse of San Antonio, Saulo? Oh, yeah. Maybe some of you guys can relate. So the reason we're wanting to bring Pastor David Cameron on and stuff is maybe you feel a little bit like this.
Crazy stuff's going on and people are getting down on themselves and, they don't have as much money and they don't have,
I mean, Saulo, can you relate?
Yeah, totally.
I mean, the guy is basically pouring his heart, those you guys kind of, losing money, and I don't mean to make light of the matter, but, there is an economic stress that is looming over the city. People are getting worried, scared, jobs, lots of, people that been laid off recently, especially in the mortgage industry, rapid layoffs, salary reductions, and it's a tough time. So tune in next Thursday. It's going to be great. But let's go ahead and jump right into this, man. I have, Saulo, probably the most decorated guest we've ever had. I think the second coolest person was probably Greg Brockhouse, right? I always love whenever these really talented individuals, people who love the city, start running for office. We talk about it all the time, but this individual, Marc LaHood, man, he has been connected for a while. We got Marc on the show today. Marc, thank you so much for taking time out, dude.
Good morning.
Good morning, bro. That was a lot. I know you
got my vote,
dude. Yeah, you've already got my vote. I've already voted. So if at the end of this podcast I don't agree with you, it's too late. The ballot's in. In fact, we were just talking about that. I checked a lot of names off that I should probably go look into. But thanks for coming on, Marc. How you feeling right now, bro?
I feel good. I feel really good, actually.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about yourself, the Cliff Notes version, man, because, everybody knows the LaHood family, but who's Marc LaHood?
Short version, I'm born and raised San Antonio. How far back you want to go?
Man, since the womb, because we're going to get into the womb here in just a second as well. So
my mom might be a little awkward about that. But,
how are babies born? Exactly. No.
Well, it's a miracle in itself. It actually ties to the story. All kidding aside, Born and raised in San Antonio. I turned my back on God when I was about 13, 14. I thought I was too smart for it all.
Yeah.
And I spent about 25, almost 30 years trying to find myself in anything other than that. I met my wife and my oldest daughter in 2015.
Yeah.
And
Erica.
She's
beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's my wife.
I know it is. Yeah, she's great. You did good. You were bragging about Saulo's wife, Edith. Y'all got some beautiful wives. And us Latinos, man,
Well, she's
doing pretty
Peruvian,
good.
Peruvian and Polish.
yeah.
So, don't get her angry. And she's from Corpus.
Oh, Corpus.
Corpita, so.
Oh, my.
But all kidding aside, my life changed in 2015. So, I tell people straight up, my wife and my oldest daughter saved me. I couldn't have enough fun. I couldn't do enough things to fill. I had this void in my soul, in my heart.
Yeah.
And, they put the bandage on it. She brought me back to God, which filled it. And then anyone that knew me 10 years ago and they see me now, it's like night and day. So that really is the catalyst that formed it all. I'm a criminal defense attorney. I'm a father of 4 now. So my oldest is 15. She's beautiful. She's boy crazy.
Uh-oh.
She knows everything.
Oh, okay. Cute.
And I just converted her to a Cowboys fan.
All right.
So one of my dreams was fulfilled. I've always wanted her to like football.
Yeah.
It took a boy in high school to get her into football, and then took her to her first game, and now she's a Cowboys fan, so that's awesome. Got a 4-year-old, a 2-year-old, and an 11-month-old. God willing, we'll have a couple
That's
more.
actually a really interesting strategy, right? To prepare your daughter for heartbreak, at an early age, right? What do they say? What was the old thing where you buy them a gerbil and let the gerbil die so that you get used to death? Have your daughter root for the Cowboys. They used to heartbreak.
We're going to the Super Bowl this year.
That's true. I forgot about that. We are going to the Super Bowl this year. I forgot.
Every year we're going.
We're going to the Super Bowl. Yes. You heard it here from Marc LaHood. Put all your money on the Cowboys going to the Super Bowl. Well, dude, you're running for district attorney. It's nothing new to your family. Nico has held the seat, your brother.
Yes, sir.
Your father was a judge. You said you've been prosecuting attorney for how long?
No. I've been defense attorney.
Defense attorney for how long?
15 years.
15 years. And so why now? Why DA? Why are you making this run?
My kids. I mean, the story, I keep saying it over and over again, but it's the truth. So, I've been defense attorney, and not guilties, dismissals, and weak pleas are really good for business.
Yeah.
But there comes a point where you ask yourself, what is really going on in our community?
Yeah.
And what am I leaving my children?
Right.
And so I told my oldest daughter straight up, I said, I'm closer to dying than I am to living. I'm not going to be here forever.
Wait, how old are you?
I'm 44.
Bro, you got at least 55 more years, 60. I didn't mean to touch your leg, by the way, or maybe I did.
You did.
Yeah,
I'm bro, look at you and look at me. I mean, I'm pear shaped and you're very svelte.
But bro, you know what's in masa, right? I mean, it may be carby, bro, but it is long lasting. You're fine. But so this is more of a generational thing. You want to make an impact, get the streets safe
without a
for your
doubt.
children.
All kidding aside, look. Why do we plant trees? Why do we build businesses? Why do we have families?
Yeah.
We're not going to be here. We're doing it for somebody else that we're going to leave it to.
Right.
That's the reality of it. Yeah. And so in the last 3 or 4 years, personally, we've experienced the increase. Professionally, I've seen the result of it. And it's just a question of what do we do? Do we stop now and do we take action now, or do we let it bottom out like we're seeing in San Francisco or LA or Portland or wherever? Well, by then it's too late. By then damage is done. By then we've already experienced it.
And I've heard the term San Frantonio. Have y'all heard that?
I hadn't heard that yet.
Yeah, San Frantonio. I was highly offended, but to hear you say that is a real thing. And so let's for the audience and please, for my military friends and industry professionals who have questions, please put your questions in the comment section. What is actual the intent of a DA? Because when we talk about, you said the last 3 to 4 years. There has been some question in regards to, is it the DA or is it the police, right? Because I know it takes both parts to get people prosecuted and things like that. So what is the purpose of the DA? What role do you guys have in our city?
So the DA is the chief law enforcement officer in the county. So they're the ones that actually prosecute cases. And one of the biggest misconceptions when I say I'm going to prosecute crime, they say, oh, you're going to throw everyone in jail. No. The definition of prosecution is to initiate and proceed with criminal proceedings.
Okay.
That's it.
Yeah.
So If a law has been violated, it's take action.
Right.
And then from that, you can either go to trial, you can seek prison, you can seek jail, you can seek probation, deferred education, pretrial diversion. I mean, all that happens after the fact, but we have to take action. And so the DA and our police are two sides of the same coin. So our police officers are the investigating agency. So they work the case up, they turn that work product over to the DA,
right,
and then the DA prosecutes it. And so they have to work in concert. So part of the problem what's going on, sorry to cut you off.
No, go please.
Part of the problem what's going on, because people try and point the finger everywhere else.
Yeah.
The buck stops at the DA's office.
Okay.
And so this is an analogy I give people. If the DA stops prosecuting a crime or a charge, it's like telling somebody, I'll give you two options. You can build a fence or dig a hole. But if you dig a hole, I'm going to push the dirt back in.
Yeah.
Which job are you going to do?
Build a fence.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Same thing. So if we tell our law enforcement, you can arrest people, but if you arrest X, A, B, and C or X, Y, and Z, and we're going to dismiss it, they're going to stop making those arrests to focus on arrests that are actually getting prosecuted.
Yeah.
So that's the cycle that we're seeing, and that's the result that we're seeing the last 3 or 4 years.
So that's been, and I have a lot of family that serves, in the blue, and so I get, yes, Mexicano Solo, we get our news in the backyard, right? Backyard barbecues, right? That's whenever your cousin Adrian's like, yeah, man, in the force, things are changing, and of course you fact check all that, right? But the energy you're talking about right now is you say that we got a lot of police that are trying to get these things to go to court. That's ending up on the DA's desk, and we're just making less of an effort to prosecute it.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a fact.
Yeah, and that's what I've gotten too. Now, does that play a role? Like, is that why McManus, has kind of leaned to, or not kind of, but he's endorsed you? Because I know that there's been kind of two sides on, do you want to be backed by McManus? What is that, kind of story? What is that narrative? I listened to your debate against Joe, and he was using it as like, you don't want to be backed by, the police force. It made no sense to me. I don't understand that.
It makes zero sense. I mean, here's the reality is either, why would you not want to be supported by anybody, right?
Yeah.
I mean, politicians get donations,
right?
And so by getting donations, you're being backed by somebody,
right?
So all that is fluff. I tell people it's either what you are about, what are your ethics, what are your moral, what are your virtues, and what is your vision of what you're going to do. Because at the end of the day, I don't care who supports us. I don't care what our platform underlying issues are. The job is this. We have laws in the books. And the job should be focusing on the charge, the evidence, and the history.
Right.
And if we focus on that, ignore the fluff,
right,
then you don't have to worry about what your political platform is or what your religion is or what your personal beliefs are, because all that changes from person to person.
Yeah.
It should be objective, and it should be applied to everybody.
Amen. Dude, that was so bogus to me. And one, I love the debate. I loved it. I think you did an amazing job. I wasn't a huge fan of how it was moderated, but I'll leave my personal beliefs. But I'm not the DA. This is my podcast, Solo. I can impose my opinions, bro. I didn't like that moderator, bro. But that doesn't mean that Mark didn't like the moderator. So I'm not speaking for Mark. I'm speaking for me. Anyways, back to my point. I was listening to it last night, and one of the biggest things that I noticed was the fact that we're even having a conversation on a DA ruling on personal belief. I could tell that you were kind of getting frustrated, like, dude, am I taking crazy pills here? Are we saying that it is okay to bring in our personal beliefs if the law is the law? And it sounded like in one of the questions, when Joe got a little bit hung up was, talking about his stance on if Texas legislator rules with, abortion and how he's going to, push. And he kind of answered it and he kind of walked it back. And you just simply asked him, so, and what, do you remember what you asked him? So you
would enforce it.
You would enforce it.
You would prosecute it.
Yeah.
And he said, I think, well, it's a fact by fact, case by case. And I'm looking at him thinking, well, yeah, it's exactly how it should be. But if you don't have the guts to stick, I mean, he's wrong, but if you don't have the guts to stick to your guns on the one issue you make a platform,
right,
you're telling everyone you have the guts to fold on everything.
Everything, bro.
I meant, either believe it or don't.
Yeah.
But Be a man of your word.
Let me ask you this: how difficult is it? It just feels like this this new energy, and it's been this way for I don't know how many elections now, where people want to put everything in a box. People want to get that statement from you, Mark. They want to snip it, right? They want to hear you say. And, then it brings in, well, what about rape and what about incest and everything else? But, I mean, how do you stick to your guns when the whole media wants you to, black and white, but yet as a district attorney, you got to gather all the facts? How do you hold your ground in that?
So it's a good question. It's literally this simple, is if you know what your vision is, you know what the law is, and you believe in the law. And so the rule of law is not a campaign slogan.
Yeah.
It is the foundation of order for society.
Right.
Because in Texas, whether you're in El Paso, you're in Laredo, you're in Dallas, you're in Houston, you want to know that the law is going to be applied evenly everywhere.
Yeah.
And the only way that's done is if you take personal beliefs, personal opinion, public swaying, the media, whatever it is, all that is aside. If you just focus on the charge, the evidence, and the history, all that noise goes away.
Right.
And if that's your guiding compass, then you won't get it wrong. And I tell people, I go, look, if they change the law and I don't like it, I'm still going to enforce the law they change, because that's the job that we sign up for.
Right.
And if you don't have the fortitude to do that, then go be a legislator, change the law.
Yeah.
But if you're going to run for law enforcement, do we want our police, they get a call, oh, I don't believe in that, I'm not going to respond. No.
Yeah.
The job of law enforcement is in the word.
Right.
Enforce the law.
But
protect the public.
How often does it really happen? Are we really talking about an isolated, statement that maybe Joe made? But in reality, don't most politicians, to some degree, utilize, whether it's their, political beliefs, religious beliefs, family beliefs? I mean, how do you not use the DNA? Because you're running off your DNA. You telling me that, hey, dude, my girls, my family, I want them to live in a safer city. We're so emotionally invested. But then how do you get to a place where, emotions aside, law is law? Do we all have biases in
without
politics?
a doubt, we all do.
Yeah.
Well, we all have biases and prejudices. When you pick a jury trial, one of the things that you do is you have two chances to strike a juror.
Sure.
One is for bias and prejudice,
and
then one's peremptory, which you can strike for any reason aside from race, gender, and religion. But we all have our biases, and what we ask our jurors to do, what we ask everyone to do, is can you set aside, within reasonably possible, your personal beliefs to follow the law? Mm-hmm. Now, your personal beliefs always come into it. So there is what's called prosecutorial discretion.
Okay.
The argument that I have with Joe is he takes his discretion as a charge at whole, right? I disagree with the law, so I'm not going to enforce the law. That's not discretion. That is changing laws.
Yeah.
Discretion is saying, okay, here's the charge,
right,
and here are the facts. And are these facts as bad as this one? What's your history? Are you showing X, Y, and Z that why you're entitled, or why you are a good candidate, or why we should take a chance on you? That's discretion. So you're right, you can't completely separate it.
Yeah.
But if you focus on it, if you focus on the law at hand, and that's your guiding compass, that's how you have to stay grounded. Because, look, the real world is not perfect.
Yeah.
We're never going to be 100% perfect.
Sure. And
all we can do is always question ourselves, always challenge ourselves, and always hold ourselves to the ideals and the laws at hand.
And I love it, man. And in the hours of gathering content, trying to look up any context that you've given, conversations you've had, watching your debate, you've stayed consistent with your message in regards to, we got to look at the facts. I just feel like this generation wants an answer. They want the soundbite. They want the, and it's so
frustrating.
So polarized, bro. And it really is, because as a conservative, as a Republican myself, we want somebody to come back in and establish law, and not necessarily like, I may stand with how you stand on certain things from a religious belief, because we both, have faith and have faith in God. But more importantly, I want you to rule on the law. And you're right, because it feels like people have just been, when we talk about just dismissing these cases, like, I'm not going to rule on, people who want to, enable abortions. But if the law says you have to, then you have to, right? And I just feel like, as a Republican, man, we're just tired. Like we just come back in and establish what the rules are.
Well, here's the scary thing. I mean,
yeah.
Even something not as hot as that. I mean, let's talk about marijuana, right? So whether or not we should actually legalize it is a whole different question.
Wait, it's not legal right now? Saulo.
Don't make any confessions on camera.
I won't.
I'm still a defense attorney.
Yeah, we do back the blue. I will say that. Yeah.
But on a serious note, I mean, the reality is this: take whatever crime or charge or issue out of the question. What I tell people is this: what we have to focus on is we have to remember in 2 years, 4 years, 6 years, 8 years, someone else is going to be in power.
Yeah.
The moment that we say it's okay for our law enforcement to pick and choose based on their personal beliefs what we enforce, then we can't complain when anybody else is in power picks and chooses what they enforce.
Right.
And then the next step, which I think is most terrifying, is I don't think there's any difference between not enforcing laws that are on the books is no different than enforcing laws that aren't on the books, because they both ignore the process that we have in place.
Yeah.
And both are terrifying, both are illegal.
That's good.
And that's why it's so important that, we have to be consistent and we have to apply it. One of the things that really offended me as well is a couple years ago, there were sheriffs and people across the country saying that we're going to make X, Y, and Z, a sanctuary city or county for even the Second Amendment.
Ugh.
And you got to either you believe in the rule of law or you don't. You have to apply it evenly or you don't.
San
You can't
Antonio
pick and choose.
is what's it called? Castle rule, castle law,
Castle doctrine.
Castle doctrine, right? Where, because I heard that, right? And I started to think in regards to what that means for Bexar County with all these conversations about the Second Amendment. And if somebody comes into your house, if you do want to defend your family, is that automatic, court prosecution? At what point can we, with confidence, knowing that crime is on the rise, knowing that, we live in a different city than we did 10 years ago, how many rights do I still have with castle law where I can take somebody down,
Sadly, it depends on who the DA is.
Yeah.
I mean, really.
Yeah.
I mean, in the last couple of months throughout the country, I mean, there was a guy working in his shop that defended himself, was charged with murder, Uber driver, people in New York. I mean, it really depends upon the DA.
Yeah.
That's why it is so important that we have our law enforcement stay outside of the politics and enforce the laws on hand.
That's good.
Because, it's a twofold argument, right? One is outside of what we're talking about. One is the Constitution, and then, of course, there's the God-given rights to defend ourselves and others. But they're tied together. But the reality is, at what point do we ever give up our right to defend ourselves, our loved ones, or someone else who is being wrongfully abused or preyed upon? And that defense of others and self is a fundamental right. The problem is, again, going back to the answer that everyone wants, the sound bites. There is no soundbite answer. It's always based upon the facts. Right? So people say, oh, well, what if someone does X, Y, and Z? Can I just do? Well, it depends on the facts.
Yeah.
And if the facts and the history support it, then yes. And if it doesn't, no. I mean, it's literally there's no blanket answer.
So how many times have we called Nico before we've done something, right? Hey, Nico, can we do this? And well, Papa, let me, how much? How much? But now we got Mark's number too, right? So we'll make him. If Nico says no, call Mark, or is it the other way? I don't know. So I want to go back to it because you said something that was really, I think, powerful. We talk about the city. We talk about, just even marijuana. I know that there's been conversations about like racing. I didn't know racing. Is that, are people still doing that on McCullough or Commerce?
Yeah, racing's an issue.
I need to, that sounds fun. Saulo? What is that, Saturday nights?
It sounds fun until you lose control and you wreck into someone's house.
Oh my, I got real. What if it's somebody's house where a criminal lives in there already? Anyways, but so if people aren't getting arrested, we talk about marijuana under the DA right now that we have Joe Gonzalez, or is it called catch and release or something where
it's actually called cite and release.
Cite and release. Yeah. Catch and release is fishing, I think. Cite and release. So
that's immigration.
Immigration. That is immigration. Oh,
but it's cite and release. So basically there's a classification of charges. According to the current DA, it's graffiti, criminal mischief, which is destruction of property, theft of services, misdemeanor theft, trespassing, marijuana, among some other stuff, which if you break the law, they give you a ticket, and you go on your
What
way.
are we talking, like, $80, $100, you get fined on the spot kind of deal?
Well, so it's a little more than that. I mean,
Yeah.
so there is some accountability, but it's very minimalized.
Yeah.
I mean, the reality is the feedback we're getting both from pretrial services, from the prosecutors, from law enforcement, and allegedly people that are involved in it in themselves.
Yeah.
It feels like a slap on the wrist.
Yeah.
There's no real repercussions for it.
So it's enabling people to do it.
In my humble opinion, I mean, that's an argument for a different day. I mean, I believe in. Look, I'm a common sense person.
Yeah.
And so I don't think that our children are any different than us or any different than any relationship. I mean, actions have to have consequences.
Right.
If we take away consequences or accountability, our behavior doesn't get better, it gets worse.
Yeah.
And so if someone does something and they don't think that there's any repercussion in their mind, they're not going to stop doing it. And typically you start progressing.
Right.
Right. So like I had someone ask me about saying that broken windows theory was proven false. And I said, well, I'm not an expert, I'm not a psychologist, but in my caseload, when I look at someone's history, I don't see someone go from 0 to capital murder.
Yeah.
They're typically a progression of crimes.
Yeah.
And those crimes typically get worse. Whether it's drug abuse, you don't just wake up one day and say, I'm going to shoot up heroin. You typically start experimenting.
Sure.
And you go, further down that rabbit hole.
Right.
I think it's common sense.
It is.
And so we want to be proactive early on to try and stop it from later on.
So I don't understand why this isn't going to be a landslide. I mean, I can't. So in looking at your website and listening to Joe Gonzalez, I hadn't paid much attention to Joe. I've only heard a lot of feedback on how police think Joe's done, how the city thinks Joe's done. But I don't hang out with a lot of criminals, so for the most part, the people that I hang out with want more law, want more enforcement, want more court cases, want more people getting prosecuted, locked up. What is the biggest difference between, why does San Antonio have a problem with that? Why isn't this a no-brainer election coming up?
I don't think we have a difference. I think it's a messaging thing because Judge Peter Sakai, Judge Michael Mary, and several other Democrat candidates on the ballot right now all say we want the rule of law.
Yeah.
All say that laws should be followed.
Right.
Even the Express News, who endorsed Patricia J., great candidate, 45th district judge against the incumbent, said they endorsed her over the incumbent because the incumbent doesn't understand there's a separation of powers. We need the rule of law. We need to apply it without personal agenda. We're human.
Right.
We pick and choose when we want to apply it.
Yeah.
And or when it's convenient for us to apply it. But I think in our souls, we understand that it needs to be applied universally because we do it for our kids, we do it for our job, we do it for our relationships. It's just a matter of calling it out and applying it evenly.
Yeah.
I think it's that simple. We just got to do it.
We just got to do it. I mean, maybe because I'm turning 40 and dude, I'm young. I mean, I'm young. I feel young, but I just got married. I got my
Congratulations.
thanks, bro. I got a house, and we lock our doors, and we do all the things that homeowners do to protect their sweethearts. And but I ain't gonna mess around, dude. I got a 9mm in my house. I live in Hollywood Park, so it's not a lot of riffraff except
close to me.
every now and do I?
Yeah, across
dude.
the highway.
I threaten more deer than I do gangbangers, but go out there with my 9mm and you fire one off. But what I don't understand, man, is everybody I think should, especially in this season, be advocating for what you're trying to bring. And I just, as I was listening to these things over and over and over, I heard one comment that was made where, are we worried about if Marc LaHood's in office, we're going to fill up all these jail cells and everybody's going to jail. I'm like, man, if there's a lot of bad people, I hope so. You hear that? Do people tell you?
No, they ask all the time. So the two questions they ask is, one, are you going to throw everyone in jail?
Yeah.
And then the second question is, well, if the jail is backlogged, then you're going to create further backlog. And so I tell people, well, one, first and foremost, to prosecute doesn't mean you throw everyone in jail. I think if you go extreme either way, it creates problems. So if you give the max offer on everything, the only thing that happens is defense attorneys set everything for trial.
Yeah.
You can't prepare all of them, so a bunch of cases get dismissed, which isn't good for our community.
Yeah.
If you don't prosecute what you're dealing with now, people don't get prosecuted, cases get dismissed, and we have a problem. We have to be pragmatists. Like, take emotion out of it, it's still a business.
Right.
How do we become efficient at the business of protecting Bexar County?
Yeah.
And the only way you become efficient is you have to be able to fact check and spot the issues. You want to be able to identify the criminals, the predators that we need to take off our streets or off this planet. Then we have to identify the people that need help and want help, and you try and help them out. And then you identify people that are probably the one-shotters, right? They made a mistake. There still has to be some accountability, but they're not going to come back in the system. And you got to figure out how do you balance that out to where you are not overloaded, to where you're actually still making a difference. That's issue number one. Issue number two is this. I tell people, so if the jail is inefficient, if the sheriff doesn't know how to run his jail right, so what, we stop prosecuting cases? Do the police stop making arrests? Oh, the jail is not functional, so we just, everything stops. No. We keep doing our job. We put the pressure on, and dare I say it, we get rid of the people that aren't doing their job. Like from day one, I tell people straight up, if I don't uphold my promise, fire me.
Right.
If we fired more politicians, they would keep the promises.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that's all. I mean,
it's that simple.
It's that simple.
It's really that simple. But no one wants to say it. I mean, fire the sheriff, get a new sheriff.
And Solo and I were talking about
efficiently.
that, right? Earlier before Mark got here, you know, and going to jail is not necessarily such a bad thing, right? You pay $50 to get out, or you roll doubles, right? Solo.
roll doubles.
But you know, they brought up a statement in your debate against Joe Gonzalez where it sounded like a media move that he was doing, where it was I don't know if it's reform or how you package it, but talking about getting bad police out, right? And I don't want to misquote the moderator or what the context was on how we had gotten there, but I think it was along the lines of course I'm not backed by the police because I'm getting rid of the bad ones. And to me, and because I'm biased and I have opinions, it sounded like he was putting all the police in a box as they're all bad. And that's the cool woke thing to say these days. And it's not that I was like, well, Mark's probably going to feel the same way if bad police need to, you know. So, I mean, and that's just one of those other things where
it's a soundbite.
It's a soundbite. It's cool to reform or.
Well, it's twofold. One is that's the message right now. Whether it's to fund the police, it's to lock all the police up. You know, to basically assume that they're the ones that are wrong. But the other issue I tell people is this: let's use common sense. Okay, so let's assume that Joe is right on that. Well, then why did adult probation endorse us? Right? Because there's it's linear. So the police work it up, they give it to the DA. If the DA prosecutes it efficiently, then they give it to probation.
Yeah.
So police before the DA, probation after the DA, both say the DA is the issue. It's not being done efficiently and effectively. So that's response number one. Response number two is this: I don't care what the predicate is. Illegal aliens, the police, judges, rich people, your color, your gender, I don't care what it is. All that is fluff. If a law was broken, you should focus on the charge, the evidence, and the history.
Yeah.
I don't care who it is. Right. And hold everyone accountable equally.
It's good. That's good. The DA seat is what, 3 years?
4.
4. So Nico had it prior to Joe. Joe's got it. Man, I'm praying you get it in this November 8th election, brother. But is 4 years enough time? Like, I mean, because it sounds great, dude. Nobody would love nothing more than to have a safer city, a city where, you know, bad guys are getting locked up, you know, or at least having an opportunity to get, you know, to the DA. But is 4 years long enough?
I do think it is.
Yeah.
I think 2 is too quick for you to make any kind of meaningful changes.
Yeah.
I think 6 is probably more than you need. I think 4 years is a good amount for the voters.
Yeah.
To say, you know, are you actually keeping your promise?
Yeah.
Because it takes a while to get the regime changed, to get the new ideology, to get, you know, if this is an institution and the institution's going here, but where we need to go is here, it takes a while to even start moving it.
And
I think 4 years is a good enough time for people to say, hey, you know what, he's doing or she's doing what they promised they would.
Yeah.
I like where it's headed. Like in 4 years, you know, in 2 years, Joe would have been able to say, we haven't had time to see the fruits or the errors of our ways.
Well, your 4 years gets even shorter whenever you're not willing to work with, McManus and the other individuals, right? Because that's the thing. And he can say all he wants, well, it's okay to agree to disagree. And I'm like, well, with that position, probably not. Because if you're starting to create the mindset amongst the police force that even if you do bring this before the DA, it's going to get thrown out, eventually they're going to stop, like your example of digging a hole versus building a fence. But is that the move? Is the move, where you partner up with like a Chief McManus? I mean, where does that change even start if you get in November 8th or when you get in November 8th?
So it is a twofold. So the chief is actually different than the administration.
Okay.
So, right, so the chief is not SAPOA. The sheriff is not DSABC. They are actually separate. I mean, the same law enforcement agency they're working for or working towards, but they're independent. But you definitely, in a perfect world, you want to have a good relationship with the chief. You want to have a good relationship with the workers.
Yeah.
You want to make sure that you're equally yoked.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the truth. I mean, you want to have a good relationship with probation.
Yeah.
Because, so some of the complaints that no one wants to talk about is probation gets its funding from probation.
Right.
And so there are other ways of resolving cases where that funding is not going towards them. Well, if they're not adequately funded, or if our police aren't adequately funded, those are issues that are outside of it. We all have to work in concert. I tell people, it may not be true anymore, but back in the day, the cast of Friends was the most paid cast of all time.
Yeah.
Because they didn't say, I want more money from me. They worked together. It was all or nothing. And so if we understand that we all want the same goal,
Sure,
to protect Bexar County,
right?
Instead of butting heads, if we said, hey, I'm going to help you out, you help me out, we're all going to hold each other accountable, then we work together. We're much more powerful together than separate.
Yeah. And
Does that make sense?
It makes a ton of sense. And I definitely appreciate that, explaining it that way. And I'm wondering, because it gets brought up about donations and sponsorships and things like that. Like I'm a very simple-minded individual, so I'm just straight up, Saulo, what's the term? You're not a one, when you vote for somebody just because you know that they're pro-life. What is that called? One bullet point voter, one-dimensional voter. Oh. I forget the term. Are you a single-issue voter, right? Yeah.
See over there.
And I'm like, well, not necessarily a single issue voter, but I'm a single issue disqualifier, right?
Yeah.
If there's, somebody that's, there are things where I just automatically disqualify them. But, I'm still talking to a lot of the veterans that I come across, people that I talk about, and everybody's wanting the same thing, right? We want to go back to law. We want to go back to having a city that we feel safe in. And to me, you're the name that continues to be the better candidate for that. Why would a Joe Gonzalez be doing these cite and releases? Like, what is and it goes back to when he was talking about Soros, and there's these accusations that Soros is funding through campaign dollars, and is Soros in his ear? To me, Soros is the boogeyman. I don't know enough about the dude, but when I hear Soros' name, that's a single issue disqualifier. I'm out.
Yeah, I mean, the reality is it's black and white. I mean, that's not a myth. I mean, you can
that's real?
Oh, yeah. I mean,
you can look that up.
Go to Bexar County election finance and look at our election finance reports.
Yeah.
He just got $600,000 this last month. He got $250,000 before that. And the DAs across the country that we see these same problems, LA, San Francisco, Chicago, Portland, Houston, Austin, Dallas, New York. I mean, the cities that keep making the news are the ones that have this mindset. I tell people straight up, I go, look, take politics out of it. Starbucks, whether you like them or not, they're associated with an ideology. Well, Starbucks wrote an article, I think 1 or 2 months ago. They closed 16 stores in 4 cities.
Yeah.
Those 4 cities have progressive DAs.
Yeah.
And they said straight up, it's not because they're not profitable. It's because the stores are dangerous for our customers, our employees. It's not safe. Yeah. And they even said more stores are going to close.
Yeah.
It really comes down to that much of a pragmatic issue.
Sure.
Crime, I made a joke earlier before we started that I'm pear-shaped. My brother is very ripped and jacked, and I'm more fluffy. But the same joke that I've always said, or not joke, but I'm fat because I eat because I'm fat, applies to crime.
Yeah.
Crime runs off good businesses and good people, and as we lose good businesses and people, more crime fills that void.
Wow.
And that's what we're seeing from Starbucks. I mean, they're leaving cities and leaving neighborhoods that shouldn't be because of crime.
So, and that goes back to the, we all have biases and we all have, things that we stand on. And anybody that's watching, please, in the comment section, let me know if you like Soros, and then please feel free to block yourself. I've never been at a party where somebody's like, man, Soros, really good guy. He hates America. He's trying to destroy it city by city. And all of a sudden he's funneling campaign dollars into Joe Gonzalez. What? Single issue disqualifier? Like, and I just don't understand. We can't say, well, the money comes in, but that we keep that a separate issue. I mean, certainly there's an agenda there. None of us normal citizens will ever understand how the sausage is made, but
I like that.
Man, dude, I just, that scares me. I mean, that is a scary thing. I didn't know we were even on George Soros's radar, Saulo, in San Antonio. We's moving on up. San Francisco, or down, very down, yeah.
Well, Texas is a key state.
Yeah.
And so he has DAs in Dallas, in Houston, I believe Austin, and of course Bexar County.
When you say he has DAs, you mean he's like sponsored? Like,
he's sponsored.
Yeah,
I mean,
which is the same thing. He has.
He's
them, right?
contributed money, large amounts. There's an article that just came out. I haven't actually, in all fairness, I have not looked up the Dallas County DA's finance reports. Okay. I have actually looked up our DA's finance report, so I know for a fact
he
his
admitted
PACs have actually done it. But and there's other agendas that tie into it. There's a group called the Texas Organizing Project, right? Mm-hmm. And the problem is they have a good message that if you don't challenge it, it sounds really good.
Right.
And so when you say justice reform, that sounds good. Who doesn't want justice reform? Who doesn't want more justice or, to apply it fairly or whatnot? We all want that. The problem is we live in the real world, and we got to make sure the sound bites actually match the action.
Sure.
And so, what has happened is TOP has bonded out, spent over $1 million bonding out people that have no skin in the game. So over a third don't show up to court. Over 2/3 have reoffended on bond, and they're committing violent crimes. And, I just wonder, why does no one scared or offended by that?
I don't know, man.
Why would they give money to the DA, and why would the DA give money to them?
Yeah.
No, it's true. I mean, he gave money to them. And I'm thinking, why would you do that? Y'all are on you say you don't want to be holding the police, but these people are the direct opposite of you. But there's bigger questions to be asked. I mean, they're appointed a public defender to represent them.
Yeah.
Which I don't know how a public defender represents an organization that has $1 million. That's
wild.
Interesting.
That's wild.
That's a rabbit trail I'd like to find the answer to.
Yeah, I guess we'll have to wait for it to come out on Netflix, but goodness, man. Like, I was thinking a little bit about, I saw Nico at CBC at the Rebel conference they do for men, and first off, he smashed it, man. Your brother is a very interesting character. Y'all's family used to babysit my nephew, which we need to catch up on. It's really interesting how my mom's like, oh, the LaHoods, I love them, but she loves y'all for a different reason, right? Not because y'all are on billboards and stuff. She loves y'all because y'all used to watch us when we were kids, or one of my cousins and one of my nephews. But Nico has always been.
You were the one that ate glue a lot.
Yeah,
I remember that.
I ate whatever the government gave us for food stamps, bro. If there's glue in there, But my thing with Nico, he comes in, he's friends with Saulo, he's in and out of my life, but always cool when he blesses us. He's such a smart guy, and he was coming dropping nuggets out of the scriptures, and
Amen.
It was really cool to watch. But I was thinking a lot about it, where we were talking about, he was sharing with me one day how the DA is over death sentences,
Mm-hmm.
and that's a big responsibility, life or death, and I don't know, how do you prepare for that responsibility, Mark, to be able to go to sleep right after the news, knowing that, you guys made a decision that, somebody else's hands or life was in your hands?
I don't think there's a simple answer. I think the reality is whenever you choose a profession or a decision that has consequences, right? Whether it's having a baby, right? I mean, you are changing destinies, you're changing families.
Yeah.
Actions have consequences. Power has consequences. And you have to, I think the simple solution or the simple answer, as simple as you can, is you just have to understand that you're dealing truly with life and death.
Yeah.
And if you don't think of it as a joke, you don't think of it as something lighthearted, you don't think of it as a stat, you understand that if you get it wrong, you are getting it wrong.
You're getting it wrong
in the most serious way possible.
In the most serious way, yeah.
And so I truly believe, not just as a defense attorney, but also as a prosecutor, that our obligation is to get it right, is to not worry about or not seek numbers and stats like, oh, I got this. I believe that if we focus on getting it right, and that is our guiding principle, and we are focused on protecting the community and getting justice and holding people accountable. And I do believe evil exists.
Yeah.
And when we identify it, doing everything we can to get rid of it.
Yeah.
And I and how do you sleep with it at night with that? I think you just understand that you put the value of protecting the community
right
over your own selfish beliefs or your own selfish, I want to have a, whatever, sleep easy at night.
Sure.
Because you're dealing with life and death.
You're dealing with life and death. There was a message preached once to military members who just have that guilt, who have been in combat and, doing what God has called you to do, even when that involves, taking other lives, right? And, people struggle with that, thou shalt not kill. And, but yet, understanding, kind of like you put it, you got to look at all the facts, and understand how we got here. But, that's interesting, because then that leads me to kind of one of the last things I wanted to bring up, and we kind of skimped on it a little bit, was the pro-life issue and the abortion issue, and how that's big on the ballot. And Joe's biggest thing is, which we've alluded to already in this podcast, where he was kind of leaning to where he was saying he wouldn't prosecute that. He said both.
He would prosecute it. He wouldn't. It depends who's in front of. He said both.
Well,
on the debate, he actually said I would prosecute it, and then a week later he said I wouldn't. So
well, I saw that the audience was getting hyped because they had some people who believed in the stance that when he first said I wouldn't prosecute it, you heard applause, and then you could hear him getting more excited off the energy of the crowd, and he went even further. But then. This is where the moderator was actually kind of funny. She was like, "So you wouldn't prosecute? I don't know if I heard your answer there." Well, and then so you would prosecute, and so I mean, what are we talking about here? I mean, how much do you think that's weighing on Bexar County voters to know? Do we need a DA to really dismiss, whatever the Texas legislative is, or do we, want a DA that's going to keep things fair, look at it from a sense, because abortion is a very, very hot topic right now.
It's a very personal topic. It's a very emotional topic. And quite honestly, I wish it wasn't a conversation we were having, not because I don't believe, strongly about the issue, but it needs to be, I'll give you an example. So when Dobbs first came out and Joe did a press conference, the KSAT called me and asked, are you going to enforce the law? And I said, that's insane to me. I said, 30 years ago, I couldn't imagine a journalist calling law enforcement or someone aspiring to be law enforcement and saying, are you going to enforce the law? You would have called the senators and the state reps and said, how dare you change the law?
Right.
That's what we have to focus on, because I'm sorry, the moment we make an exception, we cannot complain when the next person makes their exception.
Jeez.
It is a scary road to go down.
It is.
Because guess what? I don't care if you're left or right. You are not happy with the other side picking and choosing how they want to do it.
Right.
And that's the world we're living in, because in 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 years, whatever it is, whether you like Donald Trump or not, whether you like Joe Biden or not, Kamala Harris, whatever it is, the moment we say you can do whatever you feel is right, then we can't complain when anybody does what they feel is right. And then how do we go back and say, okay, well, you're a citizen. Why did you break the law? Well, I didn't agree with it.
Yeah.
We have to have order.
Yeah.
And I tell everyone, look, I'm not ashamed of my beliefs. I'm not ashamed to be Catholic. I'm not ashamed to be pro-life. I'm not ashamed to be against abortion.
Amen.
But if they legalized abortion, I'm not going to figure out ways to prosecute and enforce it. I'm going to enforce the law.
Right.
And so I tell people, if you're unhappy, vote out our legislatures and change it.
Yeah.
But we should not. It's terrifying to tell people that, and we support our law enforcement, our police officers, our DAs, our judges, to ignore the law on how they want to do it. We have to have order.
Wow. You know, you went and said it. I didn't know if I was able to ask you your stance on pro-life or pro-choice.
No, I've never denied it. I mean, I don't go out and look. I don't go out and make it a pulpit, because I tell people straight up. Marc LaHood, the Republican Marc LaHood, the conservative Marc LaHood, the Catholic Marc LaHood, the father, whatever. That is not the position of this job. We have the penal code. We have the family code, the health and safety code. Our laws are enshrined by our legislatures, our senators.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to pick and choose what I believe the law should be. I'm not going to enforce what I believe the law should be.
Yeah.
The law is the law. And if we want it changed, amen. Change it if you can. And if you change it, we're going to enforce that law. I believe any DA in this state or this country that openly says, hey, I'm going to break the law because I don't agree with it, I think they should be removed for dereliction of duties.
Wow. Man, that message needs to ripple through D.C. It's nice to know that, we still live in a state and a city. And again, let me just drive this point, because I was mentioning earlier in the podcast, this ballot is filled with, Marc LaHood's on the ballot, and you're like the third or fourth name down.
No, I'm further down.
You're further down than that?
Yeah, I'm like midway.
You're midway? Okay.
Don't stop until you see LaHood.
Don't you
and then
dare stop.
And my dad will say, do something good, vote for LaHood.
Yeah.
That's a Mike LaHood quote from 1955 high school. So
do something
good, vote for LaHood.
But this is a lot on the ballot, a lot. I was lucky enough to be over at Bexar County, and Marissa and I had to file our marriage certificate, and I had forgotten that early voting had already started. We just got back from our honeymoon, and I was like, all right, babe, let's just go. And when I was looking at this ballot, I was like, wow, shame on me for not knowing, all these names that are on here. Started to go home and do a little bit of homework and understand just really what's at risk. And I think DA is one of those positions that a lot of people don't dig deep in,
No, we don't realize how important it is until we need it. And by then it's too late. It's not a joke. When crime knocks on your door,
yeah,
you're stuck with it. It's too late. You want to stop it from getting there.
Yeah. Is it fair to say that if you're a criminal, you may want to not vote for you? Is that a fair thing?
Well, actually it's not, because I tell people straight up, I'm going to be fair. I'm going to base it on the facts and the evidence. So, I will say this. If you have no desire to stop breaking the law, then yeah, you probably don't want me as a DA. But if you can foresee yourself really wanting to change and wanting help, I believe in helping people. I really do. That's not just my religion calling. I think that's a pragmatic, political response. It's human nature.
Yeah.
But I don't believe in using resources on somebody that doesn't want to try to change, or that keeps scoffing at the help.
Yeah.
Because the reality is we live in a finite world, right? We have 5 days in a work week, 24 hours a day, but realistically, 8 days in a work week, X amount of prosecutors, investigators, and support staff. We can't do everything. And so we have to pick and choose where our resources go.
Amen.
And so I don't believe in using it on somebody that doesn't want help. If you want help, we will bend over backwards to help you.
Yeah.
Because that's what our system wants to do. Get us back into being productive members of society.
Yeah.
And if you're not, then we got to figure out how to handle that.
Are you able to be a district attorney and still practice law?
No.
You have to give that up.
Yeah.
So you're taking a big pay cut here, aren't you? Is that public knowledge, Solo? Can we Google what a DA makes? Because I want to run sometime, but not if it, start selling the cars.
Am I really that fat?
No, dude, you look good. Hey, it's funny because I was made the joke about criminals, if you're a criminal, but, to have the police endorse you, it'd be interesting to have a candidate where the police and the criminals endorsed you. Edith, are you voting for Marc LaHood? Well, there you have it. Women for LaHood as well, right? So you go and just make that statement, right? The women of San Antonio endorse Marc LaHood as well. Erica's been such a trooper, man. I follow her on Facebook,
rock,
dude.
Man. She's my rock.
She sent a text saying, "Hey, anybody available, to come help? How can people get behind Marc LaHood for the next 4 or 5 days?"
So I'm glad you asked that. The reality is this: we're in the fight. I have no doubt that we can and we will win this. But
Come on.
I'm a sports guy, so the analogy I use is we caught the ball. We're close to the end zone. You know, when you get in the 10-yard line, you don't start celebrating.
Right.
You dig deeper and you fight all the way until you cross that line. And so early voting is today, and then, of course, Super Tuesday on Tuesday. And so if you want to volunteer your time, your resources, or your money, please reach out to the campaign. We're on Facebook. We have a website, Marc LaHood, Mark with a C.
Yeah.
Or reach out to myself or the campaign manager, Chelsea Cooper. And please, the answer is yes. What's the question? We need all the help. We want to keep fighting. We are going to keep fighting to the very end.
Yeah.
And then, God willing, we're going to celebrate November the 8th.
Man,
So-
that's going to be. Where do you see yourself November the 8th? Are you watching it from home, the living room? Are you Dave and Buster's?
No. We're going to have a small watch party.
Yeah.
Intimate watch party.
The nerves, dude. I mean,
You're invited, but Salo's not.
Yeah, hey, well, you know, Salo, sorry, dude. That's most places. Believe it or not, man, Salo's very connected. If I were ever running for anything,
No.
Salo would be the first guy I would tell.
I call him El Metal. I mean,
Really?
Yeah.
Salo will get you at least 3 more votes, guaranteed. He'll, you know, his audience, he'll get you at least 3 more, dude. But are you? I mean, this is leading up. So how's the nerves right now?
I feel calm. I mean,
calm?
I actually have anxiety because I don't have anxiety.
Yeah.
And actually, my campaign manager, good friend of mine now, Chelsea, her husband, who is a TI in the Air Force, I was venting to him, and I said, you know, for the last 10 months, and I've had this fight, this anxiety, this stress, and this fear type thing. And I just had this calm about a week and a half ago, and I go, I don't know why that is. And his analogy was, well, it's because you're in the middle of a fight right now.
Yeah.
And then, you know, he's like, you played sports, right? You've been in trial.
Yeah.
Your preparation is your anxiety. Once you're in the middle of the game or the middle of the fight or the middle of the trial, it all goes away because you're in the middle of it.
Yeah.
Now I'm just focused. I'm focused
Yeah.
on what needs to be done, getting it done, and making sure that we're spreading the message. So I believe that confidence and that focus is because we are focused on the fight.
Yeah.
And, you know, fear doesn't help you win it.
At all. How many? What's the voting size in Bexar County? It was like 100,000.
No, there's almost 1.3 million registered voters. I believe as of yesterday, it was close to 300,000 had voted.
300,000.
Maybe
I'm
a little
sorry.
over
Yeah.
300,000 had voted.
Okay.
So
Okay.
enough time to get out there and vote. Marc LaHood.
Man, plenty of time, and more than just going out there and vote. Man, grab your friends. If you're at a business, you know, and you can just remind your coworkers. I'm ignorant on this, man. Mail-in ballots, is that a thing in this?
So yeah, the timeline to have requested that is we've missed our window. on
Okay,
it.
so we're gone on that.
Unless you already have it.
Yeah.
But right now, get your friends, get your family. The reality is this. We will win it. If you want change, if you're tired of what it is, be the change that you need,
Yeah.
right? So get off your butt. Sorry, can I say that?
No, you can say that. Yeah,
get
Unico's
off-
been on this podcast, so you can say anything now.
So get out, get your friends, get your family, call them and say, you know, because the number one thing that I keep hearing is, oh, I thought so-and-so had it. I didn't vote. I didn't do. If you want it changed, then the only thing that you can do and you have to do is actually get out and vote.
Yeah.
I recommend voting today because Tuesday is going to be 2, 3, 4 hour lines.
Yeah.
And if you're okay with that, cool. But if you're going to wait till Tuesday, you know, my only, you know, request is stick it out then because Tuesday's going to be a mess.
Hey, I have a buddy that we throw jabs back and forth on Instagram, political jabs, and he's a big Beto supporter, but he's voting for you, and I found that very interesting.
I've actually met a lot of people that have said that.
Yeah, he's so Beto'd out, bro. And my settings on Instagram don't work because I still see his posts. I thought I blocked him for sure, but you know, he was like, "Hey, I like your guy, Marc LaHood." And I said, "Do you like him voting for him?" He's like, "Dude, absolutely." So you don't need to go all blue if you're blue. I mean, we're talking to a guy right now who's trying to, you know, make our city a safer place.
Well, you know, I've been very clear, and again, like you asked earlier, I don't shy it. Like I don't go out and block walk and just push it down the throats. But if they ask me what my beliefs are, I tell them straight up what was my personal beliefs, but not the professional beliefs, right? The job duties. But you know, I wish this job was apolitical. I really do. I wish the judges, the DA, law enforcement, because the job is just to enforce the laws that are on the books. And I tell people, if we change the law, if you want the law changed, I'm going to enforce that law. And they ask me some personal beliefs, and I tell them straight up, and they go, huh, I respect that.
Yeah.
Because my promise, my pledge to Bexar County is this, that my personal agenda, my personal beliefs, my personal, philosophies are not what's going to be prosecuted or enforced. It's the laws.
Amen.
The law is the law is the law. It doesn't
Right.
get any simpler than that. And people respect that when you tell them straight up. And I also tell them, do you want, Joe Schmo in 6 years who's a radical on the far right or the radical far left or whatever, anywhere in between, doing what they want? They go, well, I don't want that.
Yeah.
I don't either.
Yeah.
I want the law to be the law.
Right.
Because we elect people throughout the state to create laws
Right.
for the state.
Yeah.
Right? That's how it works.
That's how it works.
You don't want Dallas creating laws for the state or El Paso or San Antonio.
Yeah.
The state is the state.
Yeah.
It's that simple.
Dude,
I think. I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy.
No, it is that simple. And, if you're a voter, registered voter, you need to keep it that simple. Don't overthink it. And to the point that I was making in regards to blue versus red, I mean, we're talking about the law. We're talking about enforcing the law. We're talking about keeping our city safer, allowing you to rest at night, knowing that we are making an effort to lock up the bad guys. You guys know on the Chris Cano podcast, we are bipartisan. We invite all people on. This time we just didn't have Joe's number. And to be honest, I didn't ask for it. But, I fully get behind Marc LaHood. I encourage all of you all to get behind Marc LaHood. 5590 Summit Parkway. Can they pick up a sign here? Do you have any more signs?
We had them here because you were gracious to let us use your building for the last 10 months. I don't know because they've been flying out like hotcakes. Okay. But if you don't okay with it, I can drop some off.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that'd be great. And if you don't get a Marc LaHood sign, at least take out a Joe Gonzalez sign on your friend's yard. It'd be a wash. Joe is he's a local guy. I'm totally joking completely. Hey, Solo, you've heard me say this before. There were times where, it was the last day to vote and I was busy and I couldn't make it to the booth. So I just convinced a Democrat to stay home, right? So if you don't go out and vote, at least convince your Democrat buddy to do the same and then go out and find a way to vote. Any final words, Marc, you want to put out for us, man?
No, man. Thank you so much.
No, thank you.
The reality is this, all kidding aside, it's really this simple. If you think the last 3 or 4 years is working, if you think you're safer now than you were 4 years ago, then vote for Joe Gonzalez. It's that simple.
Amen.
If you feel less dangerous, if you know that we need a change to protect our businesses, our families, and our streets, then I humbly ask for your support. And my pledge is just that. I'm going to enforce the law that's on the books. I'm going to follow the facts, the evidence, and the history. No agendas, no politics, no public opinion, no media. We're not going to sell our justice for anything or anyone. That's it. God bless you.
Yeah. And so, Marc, the honor is all on this side, man. Appreciate you letting us just get real with you for a brief moment. You hit some hot topics, but more importantly, just showcase, how much you love this city, and just that love you have for your daughters that's even making you want to go and get yourself into this race. I hope that inspired somebody out there today. I mean, this is, for those of you believers, know that this is a spiritual warfare going on. The enemy's after your children. And, nothing like a father who says enough is enough. It's time to get out there and get into office. All the respect in the world to the LaHood family, how much they love this city, and how much they've involved themselves in this city. So we're all in from the Chris Cano podcast, and we're also all out for now. We are going to be joining you guys next Thursday with Marquise Cox, the CBC adult pastor, along with Pastor David Cameron from Refuge, talking about the energy of the city. So good luck November 8th. Guys, get your champagne ready. It will be a celebratory day, especially if you're in the LaHood camp. God bless, Marc.
Thank you, brother.
God bless all of you guys. We'll see you all Thursday.